I waited a year before I touched her things. Not out of respect. Not even out of grief. Out of fear. Grief is loud at first. It claws at your throat, fills every room, makes the walls feel closer than they are. But after a year, it becomes something else. Quieter. Colder. Like a draft you can't find but always feel. That's what the house had become. Cold. Drafted. Watching me. I told myself I was ready. That whatever remained of her, of us, was just objects now. Paper. Fabric. Dust. I was wrong. The key was hidden behind the old fuse panel in the basement. I found it by accident, my hand brushing against loose metal where there shouldn't have been any give. A hollow space. A secret in a house I had paid for, lived in, repaired with my own hands. A house that had never truly been mine. I remember standing there for a long time, the key heavy in my palm. Small. Ordinary. But it felt like something else entirely. Like an answer. Or a warning. The door wasn't obvious. It was built into the far wall, disguised behind old shelving and warped plywood. I had walked past it 100 times. Maybe more. Carried boxes past it. Fixed pipes inches away from it. And never saw it. That's how betrayal works, I guess. It doesn't hide. It lets you look straight at it and still miss everything. The lock turned too easily. That should have been the first sign. Inside, the air was different. Stale, untouched. Like the room had been holding its breath for years. There was no furniture. No decoration. Just a metal desk, a filing cabinet, and boxes stacked with a kind of careful precision that didn't belong to chaos. This wasn't storage. This was intention. I stepped in and closed the door behind me. I don't know why. Instinct, maybe. Or something darker. Something that already understood I wasn't supposed to be there. The first box I opened didn't make sense. Old documents. Bank statements. Names I didn't recognize at first glance. Accounts that weren't mine. Transfers that didn't match anything I remembered approving. Then I saw my name. Not on the sender line. On the source. My money. Moved. Redirected. Quietly. Carefully. For years. I felt something tighten in my chest. Not panic. Not yet. Recognition. Like a memory I hadn't lived suddenly trying to surface. I moved faster after that. File after file. Paper after paper. Dates stretching back further than I expected. Before her illness. Before the hospital. Before the slow, hollow decay that I had mistaken for fate. This wasn't chaos. This was design. Then I found the note. It wasn't hidden. It was placed. Centered on the desk. As if someone had known I would stand exactly where I was standing. White paper. Black ink. No signature. Just one sentence. They betrayed you. Start with her. I read it once. Then again. And the room seemed to tilt. Her. Not my late wife. Not the past. The present. Laura. My new wife. The one who moved into this house 6 months after the funeral. The one who said she wanted to help me rebuild. The one who smiled too easily. Who asked too few questions. Who fit into my life like she had been waiting for the space to open. I felt the cold then. Not the house. Inside me. I went upstairs without thinking. Straight to my office. Opened the banking portal with hands that were suddenly too steady. That's when it stopped being a suspicion. Numbers don't lie. Balances were off. Not enough to notice day to day. Not enough to trigger alarms. But enough. Enough to matter. Enough to prove a pattern. Small withdrawals. Structured. Clean. Hidden in places no one checks unless they already believe something is wrong. I hadn't believed. Because I had already lost once. Because I didn't think anyone would dare to take more. I checked older records. Cross-referenced dates from the basement files. They matched. Perfectly. That's when Daniel's name appeared. My son. The one who hadn't spoken to me properly in years. The one who said I chose her over him, over his mother, when I stayed at the hospital instead of going to his graduation. The one who looked at me like I had replaced his entire life with a stranger. I stared at the transfer log. Then at the documents downstairs. Then back at the screen. And something inside me finally broke into place. Not shattered. Aligned. This wasn't random. This wasn't grief making me paranoid. This was a structure, plan, and I had been living inside it. Laura was pregnant. That's what she told me 2 weeks ago. Said it softly, carefully, like she was afraid of my reaction. I remember how I felt. Not joy, relief, like maybe this time I could get it right. Build something that wouldn't look at me like I was an intruder in my own home. Now that memory tasted rotten. I sat there in the dim light of my office, the glow of the screen reflecting numbers that no longer belonged to chance. And I understood something I should have understood long ago. I had not built a family. I had funded an operation. And somewhere inside that operation, my own son was involved. I closed the laptop. Slowly, deliberately. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Laura was upstairs. I could hear her moving. Light steps. Calm. Unaware. Or pretending to be. I looked toward the ceiling. And for the first time since my first wife died, I didn't feel grief. I felt clarity. Short. Sharp. Final. They betrayed me. The note didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. It just removed the last excuse to ignore it. I stood up, and for the first time in years, I stopped being patient, stopped being understanding, stopped being the man who absorbs everything just to keep the illusion alive. Something else took its place. Something colder. Something honest. I don't know who left that note. I don't know how long this has been happening. But I know this. If Laura is part of this, if Daniel is part of this, then everything I've done, every sacrifice, every second of silence I endured in this house, it wasn't enough. It was never meant to be. And now the question isn't why. It's how far they're willing to go. Because I already know how far I am. And this time, I won't carry anyone. I'll expose them, piece by piece. And when it's done, I'll ask the only question that matters. Was I blind? Or did they just play me perfectly? I didn't confront her. That's the first thing people get wrong when they imagine this kind of situation. They think rage comes first. That a man storms upstairs, demands answers, throws accusations like knives and waits for blood. That's what a fool does. I had already been a fool long enough. So I did nothing. And that nothing was the most deliberate thing I had ever done. That night, I sat across from Laura at the dinner table like every other night. Same plates, same quiet conversation, same soft lighting that made everything feel calmer than it was. She spoke about small things, groceries, a call from her friend, something about repainting the guest room. Her hand rested on her stomach again. That same careful gesture, fingers curved like she was protecting something sacred. I watched it, every movement, every pause, every breath. I wasn't listening to her words anymore. Words are cheap, easy to shape, easy to fake. I was listening to the spaces between them, to the way she waited half a second too long before answering certain questions, to the way her eyes flickered, not away, but through me, like she was checking if I was still where she left me, still blind, still manageable. "Are you okay?" she asked at one point. I looked up, met her eyes, and gave her exactly what she expected. "Just tired." She smiled. Soft, sympathetic, rehearsed. That smile used to comfort me. Now it looked like a signature. After dinner, she suggested we watch something. Normal behavior. Maintain the pattern. Keep the rhythm steady so nothing feels out of place. I agreed. Of course I did. I sat beside her on the couch, close enough to feel the warmth of her body, close enough to smell her perfume. The same one she wore when we first met. Back then, I thought it was coincidence. Now I wondered if she had studied what kind of woman I would trust. Halfway through the show, she leaned her head on my shoulder. A simple gesture. Intimate. Calculated. I didn't move. Inside, something had already separated. The part of me that used to respond, the part that would wrap an arm around her, pull her closer, believe in the moment, that part was gone. In its place was something colder. Observing. Recording. Collecting. When she fell asleep, I stayed still for a long time. Then I gently shifted her, stood up, and walked back to my office. Closed the door. Locked it. That was when the real work began. I pulled every document from the hidden room upstairs. Not physically. Not yet. That would come later. First, I needed a structure. A map. Something I could control while everything else threatened to spiral. I started with the dates. The transfers. The names. Patterns reveal themselves when you stop looking for meaning and start looking for repetition. And there it was. Clearer now. Cleaner. Not just theft, but coordination. Laura's name didn't appear directly. Of course it didn't. She wasn't careless. But there were connections. Shared contacts. Overlapping timelines. Accounts that linked through intermediaries. Shell identities, minor accounts, legal entities that meant nothing on their own but formed a chain when viewed together. And at 3 points, Daniel. Not frequent. Not obvious. But present. Enough to confirm. My jaw tightened. Not in anger. In certainty. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't Laura acting alone. And it wasn't Daniel stumbling into something he didn't understand. This was alignment. A long-standing one. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen as the pieces settled into place. My son and my wife, working together. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was quiet, patient, built over time like a structure designed not to collapse under pressure. I should have felt something explosive in that moment. Rage, grief, anything. But I didn't. I felt precise. Because emotion clouds judgment. And I needed clarity more than anything else. I reached for the recorder and tested it. Still working. Good. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop. No name. No label. Just a place to begin. I started saving everything. Copies of statements. Screenshots. Cross-references. Notes. Every connection I could verify. Every anomaly that no longer looked accidental. Hours passed. I didn't notice. At some point, Laura woke up and called my name from the hallway. I minimized everything instantly, controlled my breathing, opened the door halfway. Yes. She looked at me with that same soft concern. You're still working? It's late. I'll be done soon. She stepped closer, close enough to touch me, but she didn't. Not this time. Instead, she just looked at me, studying again, always studying. You've been distant, she said quietly. There it was, testing the surface, checking for cracks. I gave her a small, tired smile. Just a lot on my mind. She nodded slowly, accepted it, or pretended to. Don't stay up too late, she said, then turned and walked away. I watched her go, listened to her footsteps fade, waited until the bedroom door closed. Then I locked mine again, and kept going. By the time the sun started to rise, I had enough. Not everything, but enough to understand the direction. Enough to know this wasn't about small theft anymore. This was escalation. The missing money was phase 1. Control would be phase 2. And after that, removal. The thought came to me so clearly it didn't even feel like speculation. Felt like memory. Like something I had always known but refused to articulate. I stood up and walked to the window. The sky was pale, empty, indifferent. Morning always looks honest. That's the lie. It just hides things better. Laura was still asleep upstairs. Or pretending to be. I didn't care anymore. Because something had shifted. Irreversibly. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. If they wanted to paint me unstable, I would give them nothing to work with. If they wanted control, I would let them think they were close. If they wanted everything, then I would wait until they reached for it, and break their hands in front of everyone. But not yet. Not today. Today I would do what I had always done best. Stay quiet. Observe. Let them believe the lie was still intact. Because the moment they realize you see them, they change the plan. And I needed the original one. Every detail. Every step. Every mistake. I turned off the monitor. The room went dark. And in that darkness I made a decision that didn't make a sound. I would not confront them. I would not warn them. I would not stop them. I would let them continue. Let them build. Let them tighten the noose they thought was meant for me. Because when it finally closes, it won't be around my neck. And when the truth comes out, it won't be in private. It will be in the open. where there's nowhere left to hide. Not for her. Not for him. Not for anyone who thought I would stay blind just a little longer. So tell me, if you knew the people closest to you were planning your downfall, would you stop them early, or would you wait until they exposed themselves completely? I started listening instead of watching. Watching tells you what people want you to see. Listening, that's where they forget themselves. The next morning, I made coffee like I always did. Same routine. Same movements. Measured. Predictable. I could feel her eyes on me before she even spoke. "You're up early," Laura said. I didn't turn around immediately. Let the silence sit. Let her fill it if she needed to. "Couldn't sleep," I answered finally. True. But not the truth she thought she was hearing. She stepped closer. I heard the soft drag of her slippers against the floor. That small detail mattered. People reveal more in how they move than what they say. "Is something wrong?" she asked. There it was again. The test. I turned, met her gaze, and gave her the same version of me she had grown comfortable with. Tired. Slightly worn. Manageable. "Just thinking about work," I said. She held my eyes a second longer than necessary. Then she nodded, accepted it, or filed it away. That's when I noticed something new. Not in her face. In her timing. She didn't push further. Didn't probe. Didn't try to fix anything. A normal partner would. A real one. But Laura, she retreated. Because pushing creates friction. And friction exposes truth. She didn't want truth. She wanted control. That confirmed it. I handed her a cup of coffee. Our fingers touched briefly. Her hand was warm. Steady. Not nervous. That told me something else. She didn't think I knew. Not yet. Good. I left the house earlier than usual that day, but I didn't go to work. I drove 3 blocks, parked, and waited. People underestimate waiting. They think action matters more. Movement. Decisions. But waiting, real waiting, creates opportunities you don't even know exist yet. 47 minutes later, she left. No hesitation. No call to me. No message. Just keys. Bag. Out the door. Routine. Or so she thought. I followed at a distance. Careful. Measured. Not close enough to be noticed. Not far enough to lose her. She drove across town. Not to a store. Not to a doctor. Not anywhere that matched what she usually told me. She drove somewhere specific. That's how I knew. Intent has direction. Excuses wander. She parked near a small office building. Old. Neutral. The kind of place designed not to attract attention. No large signs. No obvious branding. Just numbers and tinted glass. She went inside. I waited. Minutes stretched. 15. 20. 32. Then I saw him. Daniel. My son. Walking out of that same building. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, but I didn't move. Didn't react. Didn't chase. I just watched. He checked his phone. Looked around. Calm. Not surprised. Not rushed. Comfortable. That was the worst part. Comfort means familiarity. This wasn't a meeting. This was routine. Laura came out 3 minutes later. Not with him. After him. Separate exits. Separate timing. Careful. Too careful. They didn't look at each other. Didn't acknowledge anything. But they didn't need to. That's how you know 2 people are working together. When they don't have to prove it. I leaned back slowly, exhaling through my nose. There it was. Not suspicion. Not theory. Proof. Not on paper. Not yet. But in reality. In behavior. In the quiet choreography of people who believe they're invisible. I didn't follow either of them after that. Didn't need to. I had what I came for. Confirmation. And confirmation changes everything. Because once you know, you stop guessing. You start building. I went home before she did. Sat in the living room. Waited. When she walked in, she smiled. Of course she did. "Hey," she said. "You're home early." I looked at her. Really looked this time. Not at the woman I thought she was. At the one she had chosen to be. "Work cleared up," I said. She nodded, setting her bag down. "Good. You've been stressed. There it was again. Narrative shaping. Planting the idea. He's stressed. He's distracted. He's unstable. Not yet spoken, but being built. Brick by brick. I could almost respect it. If it wasn't aimed at me. How was your day? I asked. Casual. Neutral. She didn't hesitate. Quiet. Just errands. A lie. Clean. Effortless. Practiced. I held her gaze just long enough to make the moment breathe. Then I nodded. Good. And let it go. Because catching a lie too early is a mistake. You don't stop a liar when they begin. You let them finish. You let them build something large enough to collapse under its own weight. That night, she mentioned the pregnancy again. Softly. Carefully. I've been thinking. Maybe we should start preparing, she said. Preparing how? I asked. Doctors. Paperwork. Making sure everything is in order. Paperwork. There it was. Not excitement. Not fear. Logistics. Control. Structure. Access. I leaned back, pretending to consider it. That makes sense, I said. Her eyes flickered. Just slightly. Approval. Progress. She thought she was moving me, guiding me, closer to something, closer to signing something, closer to giving something up. And maybe that was the plan all along. Pregnancy wasn't leverage. It was a key, just like the one in the basement. Different shape, same purpose. I nodded slowly. Set something up, I added. Her smile returned. Wider this time. Warmer. Victorious. Okay, she said. And just like that, she believed she had taken another step forward. What she didn't see, what neither of them saw, was that I had just taken a bigger one. Because now I knew the next phase. They weren't just taking money anymore. They were preparing control. Legal. Medical. Financial. Everything that requires signatures. Authority. Trust. And once that was secured, I already knew what came next. Isolation. Discrediting. Removal. Clean. Quiet. Final. I went to bed that night beside her. Listened to her breathing. Felt the weight of her presence. And understood something with absolute clarity. I wasn't living in my house anymore. I was inside a process. And they thought they were close to finishing it. But they were wrong. Because now, I was inside it too. Not as the victim. As the one who sees the whole structure. And once you see it, you don't escape it. You dismantle it. Piece by piece. Until there's nothing left but truth. And when that truth comes out, it won't just hurt them. It will destroy them. So tell me, if you caught your own son and your wife moving in silence behind your back, would you confront them immediately, or would you wait until they hand you the final proof themselves? They began building the case before I had all the evidence. That was the first real mistake they made. Patient scheme survives on restraint, on timing, on the discipline to keep greed from outrunning caution. But once people think they've already won, they get careless. Not stupid, careless. There's a difference. Stupid people make noise. Careless people leave patterns. And Laura was starting to leave them everywhere. It happened slowly at first. So slowly that another man might have mistaken it for concern. She started asking me the same questions twice. Not obvious questions. Not dramatic ones. Small domestic things, the kind you answer without thinking. Did I pay the water bill? Had I called the insurance company back? Was I planning to meet Daniel this week? Then, later that day or the next morning, she would ask again, in a softer tone, with a crease in her forehead, as if she were checking whether I remembered. The first time I ignored it. The second time I noticed. By the third I understood. She wasn't confused. She was documenting a version of me. Distracted. Forgetful. Frayed at the edges. A grieving man under pressure. A husband slipping. The kind of man other people begin speaking about in lowered voices when he leaves the room. The kind of man whose signature is no longer enough on its own. The kind of man who might need help managing things. Managing. That word came up more often too. Maybe you should let me help with the accounts. You've been carrying so much alone. It might be good for us to put things in order before the baby comes. Always gentle. Always reasonable. Never pushy enough to sound suspicious. She was very good. I'll give her that. A weaker liar would have rushed. Laura preferred pressure that felt like care. I gave her nothing. No anger. No objections. No visible fear. I answered calmly, sometimes vaguely, sometimes with tired little smiles that I knew she interpreted as erosion. Let her believe the performance was working. Let her think she was shaping the ground under my feet. At the same time, I started recording everything. Not just conversations. Rhythms. I kept the small recorder in my pocket and another in my office drawer. I backed up phone logs, saved emails, took screenshots of account access notifications. I photographed the documents in the hidden room one by one, every transfer, every forged authorization, every clipped note with its little surgical instructions. Then I stored copies in 3 places. One digital, one printed and sealed, one with a man I trusted more than I trusted blood. His name was Arthur Bell, retired attorney, 68, dry voice, clean mind, one of the few men I knew who still believed that facts were sacred if collected properly. We weren't close in the sentimental sense. We played cards twice a month before my first wife got sick. After that, life narrowed. But Arthur had the one quality I needed now. He did not sentimentalize evil. When I called and asked if I could see him privately, he didn't ask questions over the phone. Just gave me a time. 8 in the morning. Back entrance to his office. I brought copies. Not originals. He read in silence for nearly 40 minutes. No sympathy in his face. No performative outrage. Just concentration. When he finally leaned back, he removed his glasses and looked at me in a way that felt heavier than pity. "This is coordinated," he said. "I know. No. I mean legally coordinated. Financially. Strategically. Whoever's involved has thought beyond theft." I said nothing. He tapped one of the pages. Daniel's name sat there in a billing reference, half buried in routine language. Easy to miss unless you were looking for exactly the right wound. Arthur saw my eyes move toward it. "Your son." I nodded once. He exhaled through his nose. "Then you need to assume they are also preparing a capacity argument." I felt my spine stiffen. Meaning? Meaning if they can make you appear unstable, forgetful, emotionally compromised, they can push for temporary control over decisions. Medical, financial, property-related. Maybe not all at once, but enough to corner you. There it was, spoken aloud now, the shape I had sensed without naming. Not just theft, removal by procedure. "They'll need supporting statements," I said. Arthur gave a thin, humorless smile. "Then don't give them any. From this point on, you do nothing impulsive. No shouting, no threats, no dramatic confrontations. You become the calmest man in the room. Understood?" I almost laughed. Calm was all I had left. Before I left, he gave me 2 names. A forensic accountant and a private investigator. "Use both," he said, quietly, "and if there's a pregnancy involved, verify nothing through her." That last sentence stayed with me all day. Verify nothing through her. By then I already suspected it. Not because I had proof. Because Laura used the pregnancy too neatly. Not as a joy. Not even as leverage in an emotional sense. She deployed it. In conversation. In timing. In every mention of paperwork, of future planning, of shared responsibility. A real pregnancy can still be a lie if the child isn't yours. Or if there is no child at all. The body is powerful theater when the audience wants to believe. I started with the easy checks. Appointment cards. Clinic names. Insurance claims. What I found was wrong in the way poison is wrong, subtle but fatal once recognized. Dates that didn't align. A clinic invoice with no corresponding insurance activity. A doctor's office number that routed through a general answering service and produced no record of her under the surname she used with me. One ultrasound printout with formatting that looked current at a glance and outdated on closer examination. Not fake enough to embarrass an amateur. Just fake enough to survive a trusting glance. I took everything to Arthur. He looked at the ultrasound image for less than 10 seconds. "This is recycled," he said. "Template artifact in the lower corner." Sloppy. My jaw locked. Not because I was surprised. Because I wasn't. There is something corrosive about being proved right in the ugliest possible direction. Hope dies twice that way. Once when suspicion begins, and again when evidence confirms you were not paranoid enough. Meanwhile, Laura escalated. She started speaking to me in that cautious tone people use around the wounded. "Did you sleep at all? You seem scattered. Maybe you should take a day and rest." She left brochures on stress management near my chair in the den. Once, I came home and found a pill organizer on the kitchen counter. I asked what it was for. She gave a small shrug. "Just trying to help. You've been forgetting things." Forgetting things. I looked at her long enough for the room to go still. Then I smiled. Not warmly, just enough. "That's thoughtful," I said. Her eyes narrowed for half a second. Not fear. Adjustment. She was recalculating me constantly now, measuring whether I was still moving according to the script she had prepared. I made sure that outwardly I was. I left one harmless bill unpaid on purpose and found it later in front of her. I repeated a small story from work twice within the same evening. I let my shoulders sag, let my voice flatten, gave her fragments of the man she wanted witnesses to believe in. Because if she was documenting me, then I would document her documenting me. And I did. One recording caught her on the phone in the pantry, voice low, sharp now that she thought I was in the shower. "No, not yet," she said. "He's getting easier, but he still checks more than I expected." "I know." "Then we used the appointment." "No, Daniel, listen to me. That was all I needed from that call. Not the whole plan. Just enough." Her tone with my son was not intimate in the romantic sense. It was worse. Collaborative. Familiar. Tactical. "Daniel." No hesitation using his name. No hesitation discussing me like an obstacle. That night, she came to bed wearing softness like a costume, touched my chest, asked if I was worried about becoming a father again. I turned toward her in the dark and listened to the breathing that followed my silence. She was waiting for an opening, a confession, a weakness she could lift out of me and repurpose later. Instead, I kissed her forehead and said I was tired. She lay still after that. Very still. I think that was when she first realized I was not slipping as fast as she had hoped. The investigator Arthur recommended came back with the first report 3 days later. Laura and Daniel had met more than once. Different locations. Careful spacing. No obvious physical intimacy. Again, worse. If they had been careless lovers, this would have been simpler. But what joined them was not desire. It was intent. Shared purpose. Shared schedule. Shared secrecy. He also found that Daniel had recently made inquiries about contested estates, medical directives, and emergency conservatorship procedures through a friend employed at a county records office. That was enough for me. Enough to see the whole outline. They were going to say I was unstable. They were going to use the pregnancy to accelerate trust and urgency. They were going to put papers in front of me. And when I signed, if I signed, they were going to seal me out of my own life. After that, who knows? A facility. An episode. An accident. A man disappears in pieces long before he disappears completely. I sat alone in my office that night with the folder open in front of me and the house breathing around me like a patient predator. Upstairs, Laura moved from room to room, calm as ever, already living inside the future she thought she had built. Somewhere across town, Daniel was likely congratulating himself for finally finding a way to punish me that would last. They thought they were shaping a broken man. What they were really doing was educating a dangerous one. And once a man learns that the people closest to him have rehearsed his destruction, mercy stops being a virtue. It becomes self-harm. So tell me, if the woman in your bed and the son carrying your name were building a legal coffin around you piece by piece, how long would you let them keep hammering before you nailed them to the truth instead?